In today's episode, we will discuss the wooden coaster that paid tribute to the early days of Hersheypark and introduced the industry to GCI. Welcome to Airtime Traveler. Hi everybody, welcome to the Roller Coaster History Podcast. You are listening to Airtime Traveler. My name is Nathan Grace, and I am joined by my wife and lovely co-host,
Haley Grace. That's me.
I just want to say thank you for tuning in to episode 2 of the podcast. If you haven't had a chance to listen to our first episode, we talked about Powder Keg at Silver Dollar City, so go ahead and after you've done listening to this episode or whenever, go and check out our first episode about Powder Keg. And so yeah, we're grateful for all of you that are tuning in, and we're just going to get right into it. So we're going to be talking today about, I said last time we were going to be talking about a coaster at Hersheypark.
Yes.
So for those of you that didn't listen to the first episode, I am a coaster enthusiast, and I present the stories of these coasters and the history behind them. And Haley represents the GP, or the general public. So she loves coasters. She has gone on coasters with me, but she doesn't know all the history and intricacies behind them. Not yet. So that's the goal of this podcast, right? To teach you little by little about all the stuff that's in my head that I usually share with you at the parks anyway. So, but
it's a good outlet for you, I think.
I think so, yeah. So, we went to Hersheypark for the first time, I went to Hersheypark for the first time this past summer. Haley's from Pennsylvania, so she had been to Hersheypark when she was younger.
I've only been a couple of times because it still is quite far. A lot of people think that Pennsylvania things are closer than they are, but
it's a big state.
It's a big state. Quite a drive. It was 3.5 hours. So, it wasn't easy for us to get there, but I have been, at least 3 times now. So
yeah, so it was a lot of fun. It was probably the first, I'd been to Disney World and Silver Dollar City, which I would classify those as theme parks. They have a general theme that they're going for the whole park and as a whole. And I'd been to Worlds of Fun, but Worlds of Fun's kind of on the smaller side as far as amusement parks are concerned. But Hersheypark was probably the first major amusement park I had been to that had. It's the park I've been to that had the most coasters, so it was a really fun experience.
It was fun, and you know what? Yeah. I think it was interesting to be able to go with you and experience it as an adult, because the memories I had were I didn't go on a lot of coasters because of how young I was, and I wasn't height requirement for a lot of the rides actually. So It was interesting getting a different aspect of riding all the roller coasters. And I mean, there was still a few I didn't even get on because they make me nervous, but
yeah, there are definitely some things at Hersheypark that I had never rode anything like those before, and so it was really a fun experience and kind of my first introduction into some major coasters that a lot of people talk about. The one thing I will say, when we went, SkyRush was closed, which was a bummer because that's the one that everybody talks about and everybody either hates it or loves it. So.
Well, wasn't there an incident, and that's why they closed it?
Yeah, the cable lift broke, and so, they had to get a replacement part. And they opened it a couple months later, but, we were right in that 3 or 4 month period where it was shut down. And
right, which, fun fact, Hershey's pretty great about reimbursing you if you have any kind of issue, like a rain, like cancellations of the ride because of the rain, or anything something like that were to happen. They're pretty good about helping you out in that sense, because we got free tickets for this summer to go, because we had a 2-day trip that we went on this last summer, and one of the days we basically got rained out, Even though we were still at the park, we didn't ride anything. So we get to go again this year for free.
Yeah, their guest services was really, really awesome because like we went and talked to them and they're like, you know, we can get you a pass that lasts through the, you know, you can come back any one day through the end of the year. And we told them, we're like, well, we don't live in the area. So, you know, it's hard for us we won't be able to make it back before the end of the year. And they're like, well, if we extended the pass to the end of next summer, would that work? And we were like, yeah, we can absolutely make that work. And so they were really awesome about that. And so I've always been, you know, really impressed with how the park handled our tickets that day.
I honestly would say it was even comparative to Disney with guest services.
I did a really good job. So
very well, you know, well put. Everything was really clean, and you know, which I don't compare things a lot to Disney. Disney's my heart and soul, so I like Disney. So
that is true. I think Hersheypark gets a lot of, like, I think they do really well in a lot of things because they are an independently owned park. They're not a part of a chain.
Absolutely.
And so they get all the attention from the owners of Hersheypark. Mm-hmm. You know, all the attention goes to that park. Whereas like a Cedar Fair or a Six Flags, they definitely have parks at the top of the food chain that are like really Cedar Point, Magic Mountain. You know, they get a lot of attention. But then you have the, you know, Valley Fairs and Michigan's Adventure or Six Flags America that don't get as much attention because they don't make as much revenue as the other parks in the chain. Yeah. So, and Hersheypark doesn't have that problem, and so they do a really good job with that park. So.
Yeah, for sure. So,
yep.
Well, kudos to Hershey. If you're listening, Hersheypark or whoever's over Hersheypark social media, we are extremely impressed with your guest services and how we were treated last time.
Yeah,
we're excited to go back this year. So
yes, and SkyRush will be open.
Yay!
Knock on wood.
Seriously, we're praying that everything will be open, and we're gonna probably get some fast passes to get on everything.
We'll do it in one day and just hit Candymonium and Storm Runner over and over again.
Oh, especially Candymonium
and SkyRush. If we enjoy it rather than, you know, the some people that hate it, but we'll see.
I think we'll enjoy it.
Between
Storm Runner and Candymonium, we really liked it.
The one thing people say they don't like about SkyRush is they don't like the restraints. So some people nickname it Thigh Crush because like the restraints come down, they sit on your thighs, and the whole ride is based on like really intense airtime. And so some people say it hurts their thighs going through those airtime moments. So, so I don't know. But other people say it's their favorite coaster in the whole world. So it's a very polarizing coaster.
I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to try it. So.
I'm super excited.
Well, we are not going to be talking about SkyRush today. We are going to talk about a coaster that definitely is not liked as much as SkyRush. We're going to be talking about Wildcat. The coaster has a really bad reputation for being really rough, which is true. But when it first came out, Wildcat was really groundbreaking, and we'll talk about that. But the Golden Ticket Awards weren't founded until I think they didn't start giving them out or doing them until 1998. And when they started, Wildcat had been built a couple years before that, but when they started in 1998, Wildcat was ranked number 11 in the wooden coaster rankings worldwide. And it was in the top 50 for 12 years afterwards. So when it first opened, it was a big deal, and like a lot of people really enjoyed it. But nowadays, so if it felt, like I said, it was in the top 50 in the Golden Ticket Awards for 12 years, no longer in the top 50. In the Coaster Bot rankings, which we talked about last week, it currently ranks number 294 in the country, which is 26 spots lower than last year. So it keeps getting rougher and rougher every year. And
we've talked about it too, and we both said that after we got off of it, it was fun, but it was rough, and I felt like we both felt that if it had retrack, like, you know, if they redid the track, that it would be a lot better of a ride. So
yeah, and we'll talk about that. That'll be one of the last things we talk about is what does the future look like for Wildcat, and what do we think could potentially be the next thing that Wildcat what work they should do on Wildcat to make it better for the future. So
it sounds awesome.
So at 294, it ranks below other wooden coasters, such as Roller Coaster at Lagoon, Thunderbolt at Six Flags New England, and Thunderhawk at Dorney Park. It ranks ahead of other wooden coasters, such as Roar at Six Flags America, Wolverine Wildcat at Michigan's Adventure, and Judge Roy's Scream at Six Flags Over Texas. It currently ranks number 9 at the park. These are the coasters that are ranked ahead of it: SkyRush, Storm Runner, Candymonium, Fahrenheit, Great Bear, Lightning Racer, Super Duper Looper, and Comet. Comet is ranked number 228. And
Comet, no, remember, Comet was the other...
So they have 3 wooden coasters at Hersheypark.
Was Comet the one that we met Kevin Hart on?
No, that one's Lightning Racer. Okay. It wasn't Kevin Hart, it was Kevin...
James?
Yes, Kevin James.
That's right. Oh my gosh. Okay, so...
We'll do an episode on Lightning Racer at some point, and you'll get to hear Haley tell her Kevin James story.
We'll talk about Kevin James during my Lightning Racer episode. So make sure to follow our podcast
so that you can hear the Kevin James story.
Talk about my Kevin James story. And who knows? Maybe Kevin James will be listening in on our... Hopefully we'll be big enough by then, so we got to build it up.
Yeah, Comet is the wooden coaster that's at the kind of towards the front of the park. It's painted white. It's the oldest coaster in the park.
I guess
yeah. Don't remember.
There were so many coasters we rode that it's like, I can't remember which is which. So
and then it ranks ahead of Laugh Track, just barely. Laugh Track is number 298.
So this one ranks above Laugh Track.
Mm-hmm. Just barely.
You know, I liked Laugh Track. I felt like almost more than Wildcat.
I did too. I think Laugh Track was an interesting ride because, like, it's completely indoors, which I think adds to the experience, and like the theming was really well done.
Oh, the theming was great,
and it was very smooth.
Yes.
Like, there's only been a couple coasters I've rode where I was like, that was like glossy smooth, and that was one of them. So I give Laugh Track a lot more praise than other people do. I would personally put Laugh Track ahead of Wildcat, but in these rankings, most people put Wildcat ahead. So, and then it's ahead of Sidewinder, which for now, because Sidewinder, that's the one that they're turning into Jolly Rancher Remix. So they're retheming it, and they're adding a bunch of new theming. I saw some pictures of it today. It's coming along really good. So
I'm so excited. Now we won't. Did we say that we would be able to get on
Well,
that
we should. They said it should be done for like once by the beginning of summer, so we should be able to try that.
Maybe we'll have to do a special episode on that.
We could.
Let's plan on that.
So I think that one would probably rank ahead of Wildcat after the retheme, just as long as they do a good job with it. So, and then Wild Mouse, which I mean that makes sense. It's just a typical run-of-the-mill Wild Mouse. Mm-hmm. And then ranked at the bottom is Trailblazer, which is that the mine train coaster, which yeah. it
was a very family-friendly ride.
Yeah, it is a very family-friendly ride. So
I would feel 100% comfortable with that being like Parker, 2-year-old's first roller coaster.
Yeah, that's a good one. So
yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the history of Wildcat. So let's go back to 1903. Okay, so 1903, Milton Hershey had made the decision to build a chocolate factory to the southwest of Dairy Church and Spring Creek in Pennsylvania. That was shortly after the town had been founded, the factory had been constructed. That's when they started to developing a recreational park, which eventually became Hersheypark.
Yes.
I found out, and then, the town was named Hershey, and, a lot of history behind that. I found out the name of the town was going to be Hershey Cocoa. Did I tell you about that? Mm-hmm. But it was going to be Hershey Cocoa, spelt, Cocoa was going to be Koko, Hershey Cocoa. Which I'm glad they didn't go that direction, but it won a contest. Like, that was the name that, like, they had people submit names, and that was the one that won the contest. So I'm like, how?
I think at one point they had like so they have before you go into the amusement park, like a museum. Mm-hmm. And right now, now it's like super crazy, and there's a lot of things to do in there, more than what there was when I, growing up. And if I remember correctly, there was like a small like walkthrough part of a museum, as well as the ride where it showed you how they make the chocolate and things like that. Yeah. And I think that was one of the things that they talked about was the history of the town.
They probably do, yeah.
So I think I knew that before you told me, but
it's
still
interesting.
A fun fact.
I do find it funny that they had this whole contest to like determine what the name of the town would be, and in the end it just ended up being named Hershey. Like that is the most obvious answer to the question that could have been come up with, and
it fits it.
It does
really
fit. It's
does.
perfect.
It
so
fits it perfectly. And
like when you tell people Hershey, Pennsylvania, they know exactly what Hershey, Pennsylvania is.
Exactly. So I agree with.
Yeah, it worked out. So the town was founded in 1903. And then shortly after, the park was founded, and they started adding rides in 1908. During that time, there was obviously the Great Depression. World War I happens during this time frame. And after the end of World War I, in November of 1918, the whole town was excited for Hersheypark's opening in 1919. Which makes sense. People want to get back to a life of normalcy after going through what they went through. And the year
sounds familiar,
right? Yeah, and the year went really well for Hersheypark, to the point that they started talking about what were the plans for the 1920 season, and one of those plans included a roller coaster. Unfortunately, the company started experiencing some financial issues during early 1920, and the company went into receivership. And during that time frame, they weren't able to add any rides. This lasted for a couple years until 1922, when they finally resolved all their financial issues and they were able to get back to adding rides to the park. Because 1923 was the 20th anniversary of the town, there was no doubt that Hersheypark would be at the center of that celebration. So I guess management also decided 1923 was going to be the 20th anniversary of Hersheypark too, even though they didn't add any rides until 1908. And I guess they didn't really open the park until, I think, 1905 is when the park was officially, named. And, I don't know. It is just funny that they're like, it's the park's 20th anniversary, too.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, if you think about it, they might have been like, let's try and make some revenue off of it.
And they probably just figured it was easier to just make the park and the town's anniversary the same.
That makes sense.
So park management was interested in installing a roller coaster as part of the 20th anniversary, especially after the financial difficulties and not being able to add rides for the previous 2 years. So on January 18th, 1923, the new roller coaster was announced. The roller coaster was to be an out-and-back roller coaster manufactured by Philadelphia Toboggan Company, and was planned to open on the first day of the season, which was Memorial Day. An article in the Hershey Press was titled "Hersheypark to Have a Coaster," and it said this. It said, "We have good news to impart to the red-blooded amusement-seeking young man and woman. Hersheypark is going to have a thriller in operation this coming season, a ride over the treetops."
I can just picture hearing that over your little radio with the static.
Right.
To all young riders.
To all red-blooded, amusement-seeking young men and women. So, I love that.
I can picture it.
So PTC, or Philadelphia Toboggan Company, was a well-established manufacturer of roller coasters, carousels, and other rides. They had been established in 1904. Hersheypark hadn't done any work with them up until this point, but they would do lots of work with them after, and we'll get to that in a second. But park management did not want to own the roller coaster, though. And this is something that happens occasionally in the amusement industry, not as often anymore as it used to be. But basically what it was Hersheypark owned the land, but PTC owned the roller coaster. So you would go to Hersheypark to ride this ride, but it was operated by the Philadelphia Toboggan Company, even though it was on Hersheypark's land. it's kind of interesting. There's not a whole lot of parks that do anything like that nowadays, but it does happen occasionally. So Hersheypark rented the land. The coaster occupied to PTC. They owned and operated. Coaster was purchased for a cost of $50,000.
That's it.
That's it. $50,000. In today's money, that's $830,000, which still is not that much
for a roller coaster. I feel like that's not that.
I mean, we talked last week about Powder Keg, which was a $10 million investment.
Right.
So I mean, $830,000. That's pretty.
There we go. There's our investment for the future.
There's no way you could buy a roller coaster of that size for that kind of money today.
Build a Wildcat.
Yeah.
In our backyard. We've talked about it.
Yeah, backyard coaster. We watched, if you remember, we watched that documentary about RMC, and the founder of the company said he wants to build a roller coaster in his backyard.
I thought it was already in progress.
It might be. I don't know if it is or not, but I would not be surprised if he goes forward with it. So, which is pretty funny.
That's awesome.
Imagine you just have a party at your house and you just have like this huge roller coaster in your backyard.
I mean, there was a viral TikTok or something or video that went around of someone built like a roller coaster and it didn't have like a belt or anything.
Yeah, it was just like you push them up the top of the hill and then once,
Yeah, I think it was like for his son or something like that.
There's a couple people that they build backyard roller coasters.
Yeah, we'll just build one for Parker.
There's one that like they named it Little Thunder Mountain.
That's it. We're doing it.
I would have no idea where to start. I like roller coasters, but I am not an engineer by any imagination.
Like I said, we'll build up our podcast, and then we can have an engineer come to our house and build a roller coaster in our backyard.
This might be a while before it gets happening.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. So this was the layout.
Oh, look how cute!
So this was the layout for the what do they call it? A ride over the treetops.
I love this sketch. It's like just
isn't that fun? I don't know if this is an original or if this is someone that like went back and like recreated this drawing after all these years. They went back and recreated it, but this is pretty much the only way. Like, there's a couple pictures I'll show you in a second, but this is like the only way for us to know what the layout is, and it's not well documented. So we'll talk about it in a second, but this is what the kind of the layout would look like, and I'll show you kind of where in the park this was because it's the coaster's not there anymore, but you can still kind of get an idea of where it would have been. Isn't there? This one isn't. So
what's this one?
This one was a ride over the treetops, the one that I was talking about.
So it's different than Wildcat?
We'll get to it.
That's
you'll understand why we're talking about this in a second.
Okay, I'll trust you.
Yeah, just trust me.
I'll trust you.
So the station of the roller coaster was to be built on the hill by the bowling alley and the main pavilion. Today, this is the location of the Hershey Triple Towers and underneath Stormrunner's Flying Snake Dive. So I think you can see here, this is kind of where the layout was. So here's the Triple Towers are right here. Here's Stormrunner coming across. And you know how Stormrunner kind of like is way above the path, that the Heartline Roll and the Flying Snake Dive. So then there's like two bridges. There's a bridge there and a bridge there, and the coaster would go across the river.
I remember walking around the area. So.
Mm-hmm. And so it would go across the river out towards like this building is, and then out that way, and then come all the way back across the river. So that's kind of where it was. And these are some pictures of what it looked like. So pretty typical roller coaster. It doesn't seem like too out of the ordinary for 1920 style roller coasters.
I think these roller coaster pictures are awesome. It kind of makes me want to like decorate your office with
old coaster pictures.
Old coaster pictures.
These are pretty cool. So
those are really neat.
Sometime between the announcement and when the ride was actually built, it was given a new name. It was called the Joy Ride, which you can see there's the name, and that's the station right there. So when it opened on May 30th, 1923, that was the new name. It wasn't...
Could you imagine... Hold up. I love this. Could you imagine riding a roller coaster in a suit and dress like that?
Isn't that crazy? Like, and you can even, like... It's kind of hard to tell in these pictures, but, like, there's definitely, like, tons of people, like, in suits and, like, wearing
their bonnets
hats. Their bonnets and stuff.
Oh, my gosh.
Like, that was just what you wore to the amusement park. And, like, it's just crazy.
So funny.
And nowadays, they won't even let you take a hat on a roller coaster. But back then, it was completely normal.
Anyways, we won't get into my Kevin James story, but that's how I recognized him, as he took his hat off.
He had to take his hat off. So. You're spoiling the story. They got it. They got to come back for that story.
I won't say anything more about it, so...
Roller coaster was scheduled to debut the week of the 20th anniversary celebration. It did not open as early as they had hoped, but it did open to the public on June 16th, 1923. Coaster was advertised at being almost a mile long, though in reality it wasn't even a half mile long. So, I thought that was pretty funny. I was like, that is quite false advertising. Yeah. Exaggerated quite a bit. From the station, so this is what we know of the layout.
Okay.
From the station, it went through a tunnel and up the lift hill to its max height of 75 feet before going through the first drop. Though the rest of the layout is not well documented, the track went through several airtime hills, which you can see in the pictures here. And then
it kind of reminds me of Jackrabbit.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar, and a lot of the coasters in that time period were, like that was the way wooden coasters were designed, was airtime hills, out and back layouts.
Got it.
The only difference is Jackrabbit kind of uses the terrain to its advantage, which I'm not so sure that this one did, but...
We shouldn't get into Jackrabbit, though. We should save that.
We'll talk about Jackrabbit at some point, so... We're going to talk about every roller coaster. That's how many episodes we're going to do. So
let's do it.
The track went through several airtime hills before it hit a large curve. You can kind of see that out in the distance here. And for those of you following along, I'll post some of these pictures on our Twitter and Instagram so that you can kind of see some of the things that I'm showing Haley. And as it went around this large curve, it came back.
Nathan, will you make sure that the tag is on your Spotify account as well? Make sure that the tag to Twitter and Instagram is on Spotify.
Yep. It should be on there.
Anybody that's listening on Spotify can just go to the profile and find the tag there, and then you can look up the pictures through.
Yep, and we'll plug the Twitter handle and all that at the end of the episode so that you can find us. So it went through this large curve to go back over more airtime hills as it headed toward the station, crossing the Spring Creek twice during the ride. Success of the coaster eventually led to Hershey separating their candy and their amusement business, which I didn't know until I was doing my research for this podcast, but it makes sense. Like, I don't think Hershey's goal was ever to get into the amusement and entertainment industry. It just kind of happened when the park started to take off.
Yeah.
So at this point in 1927, they split the Hershey Chocolate Company into several divisions under the ownership of the Hershey Trust Company. So the chocolate portion, which is now the Hershey Company, and the non-chocolate business endeavors, it was called Hershey Estates. Now it's called the Hershey Entertainment and Resorts Company. So those are the two subdivisions. And all of that was, this coaster kind of put Hersheypark on the map. So the coaster operated as normal for the next 12 years. In 1935, the designer for the coaster wanted to improve the design of the original coaster. So this was the first coaster he had designed, and then he wanted to come back and, he had learned a lot over the last 12 years and wanted to improve the design.
Bigger and better.
Exactly. So the ride was reprofiled to be faster than before with higher dips and better banking. And following the renovation, the coaster was renamed the Wildcat. So now I told you we'd make it.
Ding, there's the connection. So
that was in 1935. In December 1941, attack on the U.S. fleet at Pearl Harbor resulted in the United States declaring war against Japan. With America's entrance into World War II came expected labor and material shortages for amusement parks and drops in attendance. Makes sense, right?
Yes.
So a lot of parks really struggled during the 40s for this reason. During this time, Hersheypark kept most of their rides in good condition, but the Wildcat was suffering from a lack of materials and labor to maintain it properly. In 1944, Milton Hershey worked with PTC, so the company that built the Wildcat. He worked with PTC to purchase a new carousel, which is still at the park, which is we've seen
a beautiful carousel.
Mm-hmm. And it's
stunning.
Yep, completely original, and you see that right at the front of the park nowadays. And they also agreed to build a new coaster in the park for 1946. Following the end of the war in the fall of 1945, again, just like with World War I, people were anxious to get back to a life of normalcy. And so, people really wanted to get back to Hersheypark. The park, they had been open for the most part while the war was going on, but they had closed the zoo in 1942, and they weren't open at all in 1943 because of gas shortages.
The zoo is still there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's actually not, for it being inside an amusement park, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to take a break from rides and eating the yummy food there. You just go walk around. And anyways, there's your other fun fact from the general public.
From the GP. The GP likes the zoo.
GP always likes the
coaster
zoo.
Enthusiast like,
whatever.
I can see animals at some other zoo.
Okay, but I don't know. You've also, taken breaks too after you eat something.
That's true. You don't want to go on a coaster right after.
No thanks.
There's lots of good stuff to eat at Hersheypark that makes it hard to...
There's so much good food there.
Yeah, because you don't want to eat some of that stuff and then go right on, SkyRush right afterwards. That's, not a good idea. So you can go to the zoo, check out the animals. But they closed the zoo portion of the park in 1942, and they weren't open in 1943 at all due to gas shortages. But with the end of the war and the new rides that Milton Hershey had agreed upon with PTC, Hersheypark was ready to rebound. So the Wildcat closed in September of 1945 and was demolished shortly thereafter, and the new coaster Comet opened to the public on May 30th, 1946, and still operates to this day. So that's the oldest coaster at the park, and didn't end up in the same spot as the Wildcat, but was kind of, quote-unquote, the replacement for Wildcat. So it was built by PTC. It was designed by the same person. So it was kind of meant to be an upgrade to this coaster, even though they weren't in the same spot of the park, if that makes sense. And that's where our story ends. So thanks for listening to Airtime Travel. No.
Yeah.
No.
You got a couple years.
Yeah, that's where our story ends for now, because we're going to fast forward nearly 50 years. So,
wow, that's a big jump, babe. It
is a big jump. So Hersheypark grows significantly, following World War II, started to struggle in the 60s and 70s, and management decided to develop an overhaul to the park to kind of bring life back to, the park as it was starting to dwindle during that time period. So they started building new roller coasters. They hadn't built anything since Comet in 1946. Now we're in the 70s. So they decided, let's start adding coasters again. So they started by adding 2 toboggan coasters, which I got to show you these things. These things aren't around very much anymore.
They look like one of those straws. Little twisty straws.
They look like a twisty straw. So if you guys aren't familiar with the Chance Rides toboggan coasters, basically what it was, there's a couple of them still out there, but
those are hilarious.
So you would get in this car. It's one person per car, and it comes down over the top of you, like you're completely surrounded in this car. And so you can kind of see it right there at the bottom. And then it would come in the chain lift and go straight up the middle of the structure there. And then it comes out right there and then follows this spiral all the way back down around the chain lift that went straight up.
What a funny
And then at the bottom it hits a couple airtime hills, makes a turn around, and then back into the station.
Okay, that's hilarious.
It is a really funny looking ride, and people, nowadays, people absolutely despise them. They say they're the worst. They're so uncomfortable. And they said if you're really tall, you'll hit your head on the top of the So, yeah.
Could you imagine Colin? Colin is my brother. He was like 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah.
And clumsy as all get out. So he would definitely hit his head on.
It doesn't sound comfortable at all. So they added 2 of these in 1972. And then they did close them down 5 years later in 1977. They then added Trailblazer in 1974 and Super Duper Looper in 1977, which Super Duper Looper was a big deal at that time. It was over at Magic Mountain, they had added the first looping steel coaster, and then this was the second one. So they advertised it as the first looping steel coaster on the East Coast. So it was a big deal for its time, and it started to get a lot of attention. A lot of people started coming back to Hersheypark at this time. Because of the success, Hershey Entertainment and Resorts wanted to focus on investments in hotel properties. So they started, they built, I think the Hershey Hotel that's there in town.
Next time we go, I think it'd be kind of neat to take, like an hour or so and visit there, because I've heard it's beautiful.
It's been there. I don't know the exact year that it was built, but it's probably been there, 40, 50 years at this point. So I'm sure it's a very old, beautiful building. But so they built Hershey Hotel at that point, and some other properties that they added. So
now. I've heard it's like $300 a night, but I might be wrong on that number.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
It's expensive.
But by 1986, the investments had not been as successful as they wanted. So they started shifting their focus to start adding, major investments to the park again. So in 1987, they added Canyon River Rapids. And then in 1991, they added Sidewinder, which was the first coaster they had added since Super Duper Looper, which Sidewinder is still at the park today. And then, encouraged by the success of Sidewinder and this major coaster boom that started happening in the late 80s and early 90s, Hersheypark began plans for another major coaster addition. So we'll pause with Hersheypark there. Now we're going to transition over to the company that ultimately ended up building the Wildcat. So in 1994, there were 2 men by the name of Claire Hain Jr. and Mike Boodley who were working at a company called Custom Coasters International, or CCI.
Okay. You've talked to me about CCI before.
Yep. So CCI was a wooden coaster company founded in 1992. They had a few successful projects, and really CCI kind of started this new transition into like wooden coasters becoming a big deal again. Because in the 70s, when steel coasters started becoming really big, and like companies like Aerodynamics figured out how to do inversions on steel coasters, like the whole industry just shifted to steel coasters, and no one was building wooden coasters anymore, because steel, you could do things that had never been done on coasters for, a really, really long time. And so that was all the rage in the 70s and 80s, was steel coasters. So wooden coasters had been kind of a dying breed, and the company PTC actually went out of business around that time. I don't remember the exact year, but they had gone out of business. And so, so CCI was kind of helping to spearhead this, boom in wooden coasters becoming a big thing again. After a few successful projects, in March 1994, Hain Jr. sustained a severe injury. He was the construction manager for CCI. And he sustained a severe injury after he fell 50 feet while working on Hurricane Hoosier at Indiana Beach. He was hospitalized with broken ribs, punctured lungs, a mangled liver, a broken wrist and collarbone, and fractured vertebrae. So...
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, not
I'm
good
glad
at
you're
all.
not in this industry. You stay safe in your little bubble at your desk, and I'll be happy as your wife. Okay? So don't ever, we can do this at, podcast, but don't ever do construction of roller coasters, okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay, good. Glad we're on the same page there.
Okay, I was going to put in some applications tomorrow, but I'll throw that out. So.
Yeah, I changed your passwords on your computer. So.
Okay. So, obviously, really, really bad. Fortunate to still be alive, obviously, is really bad injuries. Hain was
that sounds so painful.
Yeah. Hain was subsequently let go by CCI as they assumed he would never recover. Hain and Boodley, so Mike Boodley, who we talked about earlier, they had become good friends. Boodley was a coaster designer at CCI. So they didn't even, they weren't working in the same part of the company, but, they obviously collaborate together between design and construction. And because they'd become good friends, Boodley assisted Hayne in his recovery. And after months of recovery and physical therapy, Hayne had, made a full recovery. Well, not a full recovery. He still dealt with some issues. But well enough that they decided, since, they weren't working at CCI anymore, they decided to found their own company. So they founded Great Coasters International, or GCI. Okay? So CCI is the one they worked for, and they're founding this other company called GCI. You caught up? You got it?
I hope so.
Okay. So...
General public can't function that well tonight, so my brain is mushy.
So on June 30th, 1995, Hershey...
CCI. Got it. Okay. Continue.
You got it?
I got it.
Okay. On June 30th, 1995, Hersheypark announced Wildcat, a new $5 million wooden coaster named after the first coaster at the park from over 70 years prior. So that's why we talked about this other coaster they built, because it was, the namesake for the Wildcat that is at the park today. The attraction was to be the cornerstone attraction in the park's new Midway America themed area. Mm-hmm. The ride would be the first project for the new coaster manufacturer GCI. The coaster was advertised heavily with the phrase "the cat is back" in reference to the original Wildcat from 70 years ago. The decision had been made to invest in a new wooden coaster because it fit the nostalgic theming of the new area of the park. Midway America, so it was meant to be like old-timey America theming, and wooden coaster just kind of fit that model better. And not only that, but like I said, CCI had kind of sparked this new boom in the coaster industry of building wooden coasters, and they become popular again. However, GCI's coaster design was unlike anything that had been seen in the industry. While most wooden coasters of that era were out and back or terrain-based layouts, kind of like what what the Wildcat used to be and what Comet is now, Wildcat was designed to be more of a twister layout, where it crossed through or over itself 20 times. So rather than, kind of being, the track was side by side, it was kind of twisting in and out of itself, and created a unique look to a wooden coaster that people hadn't really seen ever before. With a top speed of 48 miles per hour, the coaster wouldn't even be as fast as Comet, which I think Comet hits 50 miles an hour, so it's close. But the ride would focus on consistent speed and tight turns instead of airtime, which, Comet is just a lot of airtime hills, where this one's a lot more, sweeping turns, and it has a better, where the top speed is lower than Comet, but the over, like, the average speed of the ride is a lot higher than Comet's average speed, if that makes sense. So the ride would have a theoretical capacity of 1,000 riders per hour. When Boodley was asked if there was anything similar to Wildcat, he referenced a coaster in Texas that was similar, but didn't have the bank turns that Wildcat has. He was likely referencing the Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, but I'm not positive about that. That's likely what he was referencing. So,
is he still alive?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we just ask him.
Okay, we'll just ask him what
All
coaster
right,
he's referencing. Construction began in August of 95. The park made the decision to have the coasters wood treated rather than painted, which saved them $250,000. And they don't have to repaint it every off-season, which is interesting if you think about it. So
saving them money
every year, right?
That's nice.
Isn't that interesting? I never really had thought about that, but if you think about Comet, which, the other wooden coaster that had been previously, that coaster's painted white. And so they have to either go back and paint it every year or just kind of let it sit and it doesn't look as great. But anyway, it is interesting that, rather than having it painted, they just have the wood treated, which saves them money in the long run.
Yep.
So in February of 96, the park announced the ride would open to the public on May 11th. The park had really focused on the fact that this would be a thrilling coaster, but it would also be like a family coaster. So
not anymore.
That's not because it's not, too intense for families. It's just really bumpy now. So
it's pretty intense.
I don't think so.
Maybe it's just so rough that it's intense.
It feels more intense because of how rough it is.
Just remember getting whipped around on that thing.
But they talked about how it was thrilling, but also designed for the whole family. It was supposed to be nostalgic, but used modern technology. It was kind of advertised as like this best of both worlds coaster. Construction continued into March. Sub-zero weather caused delays in construction.
Yeah, that could cause delays.
Mm-hmm. Workers bundled up and did their best to keep warm.
Sounds like Pennsylvania.
The crews would come into work in the mornings with their equipment and lumber buried under 4-foot snow drifts. So that sounds so horrible.
Much like Pennsylvania.
But despite the delays, GCI felt confident they could have the ride ready by Memorial Day weekend. By April, the park had moved the ride's opening back from May 11th to Saturday, May 25th, which was Memorial Day weekend. Hersheypark's advertising campaign for the ride was aggressive and widespread. As I was doing research, pulling old newspaper articles, I was finding stuff from California, Wisconsin, Texas, Florida, everywhere had spreads about Wildcat and advertisements. In fact, so this is what they had sent out to newspapers to put in the...
Why does that sign look familiar? I feel like they might have that.
This might be in the queue somewhere or on a fence over by the ride. I'd have to look and see, but...
I was going to say it looks really familiar. I've seen this before. Yeah. So
maybe you remember it. Just kidding, you weren't born yet.
It was in my past life.
Yeah. So, past life, okay.
Well, maybe in my past life, I was the roller coaster enthusiast, and you were the general public.
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, it was just meant to be, but now our roles are flopped.
I gotcha.
It's flopped.
I don't know what we're talking about anymore.
Yeah, neither do I. But let's get back to Wildcat.
Okay. So anyway, this is what they sent out to the newspapers, and like I said, it was all over the place. There was a caption that went with this. It said, 1996 is the International Year of the Roller Coaster as proclaimed by the amusement park industry. I don't know why I don't know why that was the year of the roller coaster, but I guess that's what they were calling it.
All right.
To help celebrate, we envisioned creating a 21st century tribute to our original wooden roller coaster. You'll feel every shake, rattle, and roll of the Wildcat, our wildest ride ever. On Wednesday, May 22nd, the park held a media day for the ride and began allowing a select few to test. And then Saturday, May 25th, the ride opened to the public and continues to operate to this day. I guess opening day featured lots of 30s and 40s style decorations. They had
cool.
They had circus actors, they had circus elephants and clowns and Hershey mascots, and so it's this big celebration. I guess the
Could you imagine that now?
Isn't that crazy?
That would be insane.
Getting an elephant through an amusement park.
And not only that, but everything PETA laws and trying to get an elephant in an amusement park.
I'm sure it's not impossible, especially because that's what I was going to say is they have the zoo there, so it kind of makes sense. But I guess many media members, when they were letting media members onto the roller coaster, they would have a clown sit next to them. So you have
Hope you're
this
not scared of clowns,
right?
Whether you like it or not, clowns sit next to you.
So you have this train full of people from the media, half full of media people, and the other half was all clowns. It's really it's a really funny image, but and I couldn't find any pictures of that. I wanted to find pictures of a bunch of clowns riding the ride so bad, but I couldn't find anything. I was like, this is media day. How are there no pictures of all these clowns on the ride? But
they took them down.
It was pretty funny.
Creepy.
So yeah.
Can you imagine? Oh my God.
Can you imagine if they did that today? If you walked up to the ride and you couldn't ride with the people that you were with. They put one person.
What's the one scary movie now that has the clown in it?
It.
Yeah. So I guess that might be a reason why. It's just clowns are portrayed as creepy and scary.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking what if you went to the park and you get on this ride and instead of getting to sit, like it's 2x2, but instead of getting to sit next to the person you're with, like they divide you up and just make both of you sit next to a clown.
Heck no. I would be like, I am sitting next to the person.
I mean, it would work really well at Laugh Track.
Yeah, maybe put them on Laugh Track instead. But seriously, I would be like, heck no, I'm not sitting next to you.
I would dress up as a clown if I got to ride a roller coaster all day.
No, you wouldn't.
I would.
No, you wouldn't.
Uh-huh. Like, if I got to just ride a roller coaster all day and get paid for it, I'd dress up as a clown.
No, you wouldn't. Honey, I love you, but you're my introverted person.
I would do it. To ride a roller coaster every day, I would totally do it.
Alright, you heard it first, folks. Nathan said he would dress up as a clown. Oh my god.
Even though, well, if I'm
I wouldn't go with you, so.
Oh, I know you wouldn't.
I would be so embarrassed.
Like, who is this guy?
I am not with him.
So this is the ride experience for Wildcat. Riders board 24-seat trains in rows of 2 with 12 cars per train. The train makes a right turn out of the station and goes down a small hill before hitting the lift. Following the 90-foot lift hill, the train drops 85 feet as it turns to the right, hitting a top speed of 48 miles per hour at the bottom of the drop. The train jumps upward and hits a pop of airtime as it hits the first turnaround to the left. The train follows this turn into a dip down and then back up before reaching a big drop to the left as it crosses under the lift hill. As the train leaves the drop, the track straightens out into a low-to-the-ground airtime hill, followed immediately by a large upward hill into a bank turnaround to the right. The large turn gradually drops before hitting a small airtime moment. Then the train takes a bank drop to the left all the way back down to ground level. The train follows a low-to-the-ground bank turn, hitting a sideways dip before jumping into another airtime hill. Following this hill, the track curves to the left, flies over another small airtime hill, and then heads upward before hitting the final turnaround to the right. After exiting the turnaround, the train drops down a small hill and then up another hill before running into the final brakes. The day after Wildcat opened to the public, it was featured on Wild Rides on the Discovery Channel.
Wow.
I've never seen the show, but I guess that was another part of their advertising campaign.
I feel like it would be something you would watch, though.
Maybe, but it's also 25 years old, so
I feel like
definition of Wild Rides now and 25 years ago is quite different.
I feel like you would still watch it.
Maybe.
It'd be interesting to watch.
I bet
get information for your.
There's probably clips of it on YouTube or stuff like that. So.
Yeah, maybe.
Initial reviews for the Wildcat were very positive. Wait times were commonly an hour and a half.
Could you imagine,
waiting that long?
Opening day for Guardians of the Galaxy
and only having to wait an
hour? Oh, that'd be heaven.
Disney fans are a different breed. So
that's true.
It's totally
but still,
different.
I feel like even if we were to go to Hersheypark for this, Jolly Rancher ride, it would still be like a 3-hour wait.
It might be. So it was often said to have the look of a wooden coaster, but was so smooth it almost felt like riding a steel coaster. And we talked about how wooden coasters had lost their appeal, but had started to see a resurgence in the 90s because of rides like this. They also had it in a really prominent part. It was really easy to see. If you guys haven't been to Hersheypark, it's kind of like in an L shape where you walk in the front entrance and Candymonium is right out front and there's a couple buildings to your right, but you have to go left to get to the rest of the park. Mm-hmm. And you go left and
it's because it's a whole new,
Yeah, the entrance is a different spot than it used to be.
Yep.
But you turn left and you walk all the way down, and then like I said, it makes this big L shape, and the L kind of heads back towards the parking lot. And actually, that part of the park butts up against Hersheypark Drive, which is where Wildcat sits, is right on that corner. So it's really prominent as you're driving right past the park, and you can see it from the parking lot. So it not only was it a huge investment, but it was almost like a massive billboard, a massive advertisement for people driving past the park. So.
Probably still is. I mean, can you still see it?
Oh, yeah, you can still see it. And you can't see it from the parking lot because the stadium is in the way. Mm-hmm. But, if you're driving down Hersheypark Drive, you can drive right past it. So, the park said the coaster was bringing more attention to the park that they had ever seen. Well, since they had seen since Super Duper Looper in 1977. And they wanted attendance to increase from 1.875 million to the previous year. they were hopeful they would hit the 2 million mark in 1996. So I guess GCI had agreed with Hersheypark that they wouldn't build another ride like it. I'm guessing that meant they wouldn't clone the ride, which is kind of common in the industry because, if you clone a ride, it's a lot cheaper.
I mean, it's like the Wild Mouse rides.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're able to copy it, it makes it a lot cheaper for the manufacturer to produce it.
Yeah.
So, but Hersheypark didn't want them to do that with Wildcat. So that way it would remain a unique ride, which it has to this day. There's no ride that has an identical layout to it.
That's cool.
Yep. So the ride continued to operate through the 96 season. In 1997, they continued to add to that Midway America area. So they added the Ferris wheel in 97 and the whip. And unfortunately, right after that, Wildcat's time in the spotlight at Hersheypark would be short-lived because that was when they announced Great Bear. So in the fall of 97, they announced Great Bear, $13 million B&M inverted coaster. The steel coaster would now be the park's tallest and fastest, as well as the first to feature multiple inversions. It would be the 11th inverted coaster in the country, only the 5th one that had a custom layout, and it would be the first one to open in Pennsylvania. So no one in that area had ridden anything. No one in that area had rode something like Great Bear before. So it opened the following year on May 23rd, 1998. So Wildcat was the headline attraction at the park for 2 years, and then Great Bear kind of stole the show after that. Despite that, though, it remained the number 2 attraction at the park, just because. I mean, the experience of a steel coaster and a wooden coaster is so different.
They are very different.
Mm-hmm. And like one goes upside down, one doesn't.
Well, not so much the case anymore, but yeah.
Well, what I meant is like Wildcat doesn't go upside down, but Great Bear did. So you might have some people that were kind of scared off by Great Bear, but they would go and ride Wildcat.
Which I did not get on Great Bear, so I can't speak for it, but
yeah, she's not a fan of the B&M over the shoulder restraints, so she didn't try Great Bear. So, but I really enjoyed Great Bear. It was a good ride. So
maybe I'll get on it next time.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see how you're feeling that day.
I feel like with the Fast Pass, I'll be okay to get on it, and then if I need a break,
if you need a break afterwards, take some Advil or something.
Yeah.
So.
Find a chiropractor.
Have it right outside that. She's like, anybody need an adjustment?
There you go. That's the new investment for amusement parks is have chiropractor offices at the.
It's just $5 to put you back into place after you get off.
I think this is
honestly, these days Wildcat probably needs it more than Great Bear does.
That's true.
So it remained a solid number 2 attraction at the park. Unfortunately, it wouldn't remain unique for long because following the success of Wildcat, Hersheypark and GCI had built a really good relationship, and GCI actually landed a couple other major contracts because of Wildcat's success. So they ended up building Roar at Six Flags America. Yeah, Six Flags America and Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. And they also built Gwazi at Busch Gardens, Tampa. Isn't this cool? This one was a dueling coaster, so you can see there's one chain lift here, another chain lift over here.
I love dueling coasters. I have a special place in my heart for those.
Yeah. So they had a lot of success. GCI was starting to get bigger and bigger in the industry.
Those are cool. Mm-hmm. I like them.
So Hersheypark then decided they wanted to have GCI come in and do another project, and that's when they built Lightning Racer, which another dueling coaster.
I love dueling coasters.
Yeah, and so
I really like Lightning Racer.
See, I wasn't super crazy about Lightning Racer. I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed. This is my hot take for Hersheypark. A lot of people disagree with this. I enjoyed Comet more than I enjoyed Lightning Racer. So Comet is my favorite wooden coaster at the park. So, and Lightning Racer, we'll talk about in a second, but Lightning Racer gets a lot of hype. Like a lot of people love Lightning Racer. And
which I could see that too.
Yeah. So in the fall of 1999, Hersheypark announced Lightning Racer, a $12.5 million dueling wooden coaster to be built by GCI. The attraction features 2 separate coasters. So it has the Thunder and Lightning, so some dueling and racing coasters are all one track, but you just So if you leave the station on the right side, you'll come back in on the left side, like Racer at Kennywood. Mm-hmm. But Lightning Racer is 2 completely separate tracks. So it begs the question. Some people say it counts as 2 credits, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have your coaster credits.
Right, so you understand what that means. So some people say...
Means, okay. But then again, I only know what it means because you're my roller coaster enthusiast.
Mm-hmm. But some people say Lightning Racer counts as 2 credits because there's 2 coasters.
There's 2 different coasters.
I consider it 1 just because it's 1 attraction in my mind.
Do you remember, did we go on both?
We did go on both. Yeah, we did both Lightning and Thunder. So. And
I think I remember them being like different.
They are different because Lightning Racer is interesting because there's 2 different types of quote unquote racing. So there's racing coasters and dueling coasters. Racing coasters are kind of like you'll go side by side. That one's kind of like Racer at Kennywood. Where dueling coasters is more where you'll come at each other from different directions, like this one, or like Lightning Racer. Lightning Racer is kind of unique though, where some parts you're dueling and other parts you're racing. So it's kind of a combination of the 2. But
all right.
Yeah. So it would feature 3,400 feet of track. The coaster would be 5 feet taller than Wildcat and 3 miles per hour faster. So hardly any difference. But it was newer and it was dueling, and it's easier to find.
That's true.
Which, people, we don't talk about that a lot. Wildcat is, it's kind of off the beaten path. But like as you walk into the Midway America section of the park, Lightning Racer is right off to the right-hand side and you can see the whole thing. Yep. And so I think that drives a lot more people over to Lightning Racer than Wildcat. So. Yep. So Lightning Racer opened on May 13th, 2000, was met with rave reviews, and it was ranked number 13 in the Golden Ticket Awards for wood coasters, and has remained in the top 15 to this day. So even today, Lightning Racer gets a lot of praise from the Golden Ticket Awards.
All right, Lightning Racer, I see you.
And it's interesting, though, because I feel like, and we can have a conversation some other day about, personally, I think the Golden Ticket Awards is a little biased. I know that they try to keep, as unbiased as possible, but when Lightning Racer is ranking in like the top 15 wooden coasters for that, but then in like the Coaster Bot rankings, it's like not even in the top 30 wooden coasters in the country. It's like, I'm not sure where the disconnect is happening there. So I think it gets more praise from the Golden Ticket Awards than it deserves, but it's still a fun ride. I still rank it above Wildcat personally, but
no way. General public disagrees.
But I think I rank Lightning Racer above Wildcat.
Okay.
That's
sorry.
You're fine. You would agree. Yes. So I think if Wildcat wasn't as bumpy, though, I think I'd enjoy Wildcat's layout better. But we'll talk about that. I know you like dueling coasters, though, so that's probably why you would like Lightning Racer better anyway.
Personal opinion.
So personally, I believe the similarities between them is kind of what led to the decline of Wildcat. When attractions are similar like that, but Lightning Racer is faster, more visible, and has shorter wait times because
of the duelingness.
The capacity is twice as much as Wildcat, if not more, and so that kind of drives more people to ride that one. So then in 2002, remember CCI? So we talked about CCI was the company that fired the guys, and then they went and created GCI.
Yes.
CCI goes bankrupt. So,
dun, dun, dun.
So the company that fired the 2 guys and then they went and created their own company.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, CCI goes bankrupt and these guys are still making roller coasters.
Of course they are. Serves them right. Karma.
Right? So I think that's pretty good. So not only that, but some CCI coasters have needed retrack work done. Like I rode Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. Okay. That one was built by CCI, but when the retrack was done, GCI did the retrack for it, which is pretty funny.
That is funny.
In the following years, Hersheypark continued an aggressive expansion with the addition of more roller coasters. So they added Roller Soaker, which I just had to show you this one because this is
That's not there anymore.
It's not there anymore.
I don't even remember something like that,
so,
which is funny because I feel like I should.
I don't know if maybe you were there when it wasn't. I don't know when you went, but it was like, I mean, so basically you would sit on like this inverted coaster and you can see like these little water cannons that were like underneath you.
Weird.
So you could like push a button and it would like drench the people like underneath your coaster cart. But then there were people on the ground that also had like water cannons shooting at you.
Is it bad that I kind of love that?
Isn't that, it's a unique concept, so.
I kind of love that because I like water rides.
So
I like it.
Like we said, unfortunately, it's not there anymore. But they opened that in 2002, and then Storm Runner in 2004. With the addition of Storm Runner, Hersheypark had gone from 4 coasters to 10 coasters in the span of 8 years.
Oh my gosh, that's
so
a lot of roller coasters.
Yeah, they were on a roller coaster binge, and 4 of the 6 new coasters, including Wildcat, were in that Midway America section. So Wildcat was there, Lightning Racer was there. They put the Wild Mouses over there. They built that in 1999, and then this was kind of the start of the water park. So this was over in that section as well. So in 2007, that's when the park added the Boardwalk and East Coast Waterworks, which is the water park and the play area that's kind of in the middle of the Midway America section.
It's such a weird placement.
It is strange, and I feel like it kind of interrupted the theming of the Midway America section of the park.
I know like that, but then you have to like. I don't know. I didn't like where it was placed because you had to walk.
You have to walk around through it or around the water park to get to Lightning Racer and Laugh Track.
I was not prepared to walk through a water park.
It is a strange spot, but
it's a very strange spot.
By 2007, Wildcat had also developed a reputation of being extremely rough and uncomfortable. To remedy the issue, Hersheypark replaced the 11-year-old PTC trains with brand new GCI Millennium Flyer trains. So PTC, when GCI first started, they weren't building their own trains. They just built the track, and then they got PTC trains to put on their coasters. But then by this point, GCI had gotten big enough that they had developed their own coaster train model. So when Wildcat started getting rough, they sold Hersheypark some new trains to put on there, and these are the trains that run on them today. So the new trains remedied the roughness temporarily, but obviously over the years the roughness returned and continues to be an issue that's discussed to this day. So that is the history of Wildcat, and like we said, it's still, a lot of enthusiasts are talking about how rough it is. So
and general public, let's be honest.
And the GP probably. So many enthusiasts want Hershey to give Wildcat the RMC treatment, so RMC is, you're familiar with them, so that's the company that built Outlaw Run. Okay. And they specialize in taking old wooden coasters and converting them into steel hybrid coasters.
Didn't we learn about that in the movie we watched?
Yes, so the documentary we watched was about RMC.
Aha.
So a lot of people want Hershey.
So Rocky Mountain
Construction, yes. Okay. RMC is what most people call them. So because it's easier than saying Rocky Mountain Construction.
I know, but you need to, because I wouldn't know that if I didn't know you.
Rocky Mountain Construction.
Rocky
RMC.
Mountain Construction is what
So if you ever hear somebody say they should RMC it, that's what they're talking about. Enthusiasts use RMC as a verb.
Wow.
So a lot of enthusiasts want Hershey to RMC Wildcat. So I just pulled up so here's some examples. So 2 of those coasters that GCI had built, we talked about Roar at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. They had RMC come in and redo it. So now it's the Joker. So that's what it looks like. So that's what it used to be. That's what it looks like now. And remember that dueling coaster we were looking at earlier? Mm-hmm. So Busch Gardens Tampa actually had them come in and turn Gwazi into Iron Gwazi. So this is what it looks like now. This coaster just opened a couple months ago.
Oh, cool.
And people are already talking about this could be like number 1 in the world to compete with Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. So RMC does some really crazy stuff with, old coasters that have gotten rough and uncomfortable. So these are just some YouTube videos that I pulled from online of people that have done their own designs of what an RMC Wildcat might look like.
That's fun.
So these look like a lot of fun. Obviously, it would be more enjoyable than what they've got going on today. So, and honestly, it could happen. Like if there was an announcement that came out between now and when we post the podcast saying Hersheypark announces they're going to RMC Wildcat, I would not be surprised. Yeah. Like this, this could easily be something that happens because Hershey hasn't done anything with RMC to this point. So
that's cool.
The one thing I will say, and people probably will disagree with me on this, I would almost prefer if they just retracked Wildcat and kept the layout the same, but just brought in completely new track and got it to a point where it was really smooth like it used to be. And then I would RMC Lightning Racer. So then you could have either something twice as big as an RMC coaster, or you could have an RMC dueling coaster.
Okay, I could see where you're coming from, but again, dueling coasters have a special place.
But what if it was an RMC dueling coaster?
I don't know.
Yeah, so
I don't know.
Like I said, most people would probably disagree with me because lots of people do love Lightning Racer and they want to keep it the way it is. But if it was up to me, that's what I would do. But obviously, it's not up to me. So.
Nope.
Though it certainly has an infamous reputation these days, Wildcat jump-started the expansion of GCI in the industry. And GCI, like I said, continues to build roller coasters to this day. And they've built stuff such as Thunderhead at Dollywood, Gold Striker at California's Great America, and probably their most popular coaster is Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. We're going on
that this summer.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to try Mystic Timbers because people love Mystic Timbers. A lot of people say it's the best wooden coaster in the country. So,
it looks like fun.
Yep, I'm excited to try that. I'm excited to give it a try. So. Though the ride is certainly forgotten about now with additions like SkyRush and Candymonium, Wildcat is an important part of the park's history and marked the beginning of Hersheypark's transition into a destination amusement park. And that is the history of Wildcat. So,
yay!
You have any questions or anything else?
I don't think so. Like I said, as a general public person, or I would fair warn people or be, just give them a heads up that yes, this track is very rough. So just be careful. Anybody that is sensitive to rides like that, just be careful on it.
Yeah. The one part of the ride I specifically remember being really rough is as you're exiting the second turnaround, you'll come up over an airtime hill and then you dive down to the left and you hit a bank turn that kind of follows at ground level. And in the middle of that bank turn, there's like a dip in the track that's meant to give you some airtime. That dip, I specifically remember when we hit that dip, I think I literally said, ow, when we hit that dip.
I think I remember you saying this.
Because it totally caught me off guard, and it was not comfortable. So, yeah. But the rest of the ride was rough, but I don't remember it being unbearable. That specific moment, though, I was like, that hurt. So, yeah. It needs some work, but the ride definitely has potential.
Some love.
Yeah, it does. And I think part of it is that Hersheypark probably puts an emphasis on maintaining Lightning Racer because it's more popular.
Makes sense.
So I think Wildcat doesn't get the love that it deserves because Lightning Racer is there. So
now, do you think that there is a chance that they might just completely replace that ride?
I doubt it. The thing is I think we talked about this last week where there's a rumor that Hersheypark bought Candymonium in a bundle with another roller coaster.
Yep.
And there's a rumor that they might put a dive coaster in the next year or two.
Mm-hmm.
If that's true, then we probably wouldn't see anything happen with Wildcat for at least another 4 or 5 years. But RMCing, having RMC come in and redo the ride is way less expensive than building a brand new ride. and it'll get people to the park. You could easily turn Wildcat into a top 3 coaster in the park if you had RMC come in and do something with it.
There you go.
And for a fraction of the cost of building something brand new. So
I would get back on it if it got RMC'd for sure. So
yeah, definitely. I'm excited. I'm curious to try it again when we go later this year. I don't know. I was gonna say I don't think you'll ride it with me, but
nope. I'll sit out and
now that I know what to expect, I don't know if I'll enjoy it more or if it'll just be the same. But
I don't know.
We'll see.
I don't know. So. We'll see. I might have to get you some Advil for that.
Maybe. At least it doesn't have over-the-head restraints. Can you imagine that?
Oh
my gosh.
I wouldn't get on it.
You'd just be slamming your head the whole time.
Gosh, I can already feel the headache.
So.
That would be terrible. But anyways.
Yeah, thank you everybody so much for tuning into this episode of Airtime Traveler. We appreciate all the input that you guys give, and we appreciate you tuning in and listening to the stories that we have to tell. So go ahead and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. The handle for both of those is just @Airtime Traveler, all one word, super simple. Also, if you want, I've been posting these episodes on YouTube, so if you want to follow us on YouTube, you can do that as well. And so I think we're going to keep doing this every other week, and we got some exciting things coming. I think,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think you'll be excited about this. I think next time I'm going to do something from Disney.
Ooh.
So
I'm down.
I don't know what yet. I don't know if it's going to be Disney World, Disneyland, but I think I want to do a Disney coaster.
Disneyland, so.
Yeah, it's true. You haven't been to Disneyland, but we'll
One day.
So we'll definitely do something Disney for the next episode, so that'll be fun. So
sounds good to me.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to Airtime Traveler, and we will see you in the next episode.